on this episode of TherapyBites Art Lab.
We're here with Austin Wheeler today at the Art Lab talking about the psychology of strength. What does it mean to be a strong person? For that matter, what does it mean to be a weak person? Where does that come from and how can you develop? That's coming up next.
Welcome to TherapyBites Art Lab, where Dr. Heath and his special guests share real-life stories of helping and healing. Fresh from the actual therapy couch, while taking a bite out of common counseling missteps and misconceptions. And now, here's Heath and the TBAL Team.
We have in our art lab today our very, very wonderful special guest, Austin Wheeler, who is here to educate us all about developing that strength we're talking about. We have our bookworm, Sarah.
Hey.
We have our gamer girl, Heather.
Hey.
And we have our squirrel girl. You know, we'll have to give you the backstory on that sometimes. That kind of sounds like she should be locked up or something.
A bit squirrely.
We let her out just for these special occasions. Our squirrel girl, Debbie. And we're just so glad that Austin joins us because he does this stuff for a living. He actually personal trains people. I have a heart for that. It used to be a bit of my wife would say an addiction, and she gets great joy these days in seeing me complain about people who can't do this, that, or the other because they won't miss their workout. And she says, wow, imagine that. What are they thinking? Somebody that thinks it's a catastrophe to miss the workout. Well, you know, that used to be me. But we're going to talk about healthy lifestyle and healthy working out. And part of healthy psychology is a healthy body. But it's more than that. We're going to talk about the psychology of strength. What would you guys like to find out from Austin today about the psychology of strength?
In your opinion, where does strength come from?
Okay. Somebody else?
What constitutes strength? What is it? What does strength mean? What does it mean to be strong?
You both took mine.
Oh, we're thought thieves. Stinking thought thieves.
All right, so that's where we're starting. Okay. So typically when I look at what does it mean to be strong, I think there are a lot of different people in the world, obviously, who have different levels of physical strength. That's not 100% what I mean when I say be strong. I don't want you to walk into a gym, pick the biggest guy in there and say, okay, well, I have to look like that to be strong. It's not quite what we're going for. Typically, when I'm looking at what does it take to be strong, I'm looking at almost more of what does it take to be resilient? What does it take to wake up in the morning, not want to do something and still be able to go accomplish whatever tasks you have to get done in a day? So I guess the easiest way of looking at it is you've got a plan for the day. Kind of how determined are you to stick to that plan with outside factors kind of affecting you one way or the other. Typically when we look towards a strong or a mentally strong person, it's those outer factors aren't something that can really push you off of line.
Okay, so kind of like making sure you keep up with your structure no matter what really is going on, instead of saying, you know, I really don't feel like doing it today, or I don't think I can do it today, I don't want to do it today. Just pushing through and being like, I'm going to do it no matter what.
I tell people often, especially patients too, one of the most important things in therapy, I've also heard it's one of the most important things if you want to write a book, and I think it's one of the most important things if you're going to have a consistent workout regimen or any kind of regimen, is make an appointment with yourself and then keep the appointment. If it's therapy, make an appointment, make sure at the appointment your butt is in the chair. If it's writing, make sure that your butt is in the chair. If it's working out, make sure your butt is in the chair. You have to show up if you want to do anything with that goal. And I think that's a large part of life. You know, developing strength is simply showing up. I find that people will often, well, for instance, something I do 3 days a week. I've thought about doing it more, but it's 3 days a week. I run 3 miles a day, 3 days a week. And by the way, I like reminding myself of my success at running over 500 miles a year. I mean, how many people run over 500 miles a year? Some people run lots more, but I still think if you're actually getting in that cardio, you're still in a very small club. But I don't worry about what am I going to accomplish when I get there on the run. I mean, I do try to keep my 3 miles under 20 minutes. That's nice. I like, being able to say to myself, I did
Right.
that. I don't post it on social media. I mean, I do say it here sometimes. This is kind of a personal accountability thing for me. But I don't worry about how hard it's going to be, how easy it's going to be, how out of breath it's going to be, how much it's going to suck. By the way, I'll catastrophize a little bit. It always sucks. I never like it. I've never, but I like having accomplished it. But the biggest thing that I do is show up. Austin, what do you find in terms of showing up that people struggle with? What do you think gets in the way of people showing up?
I would say people thinking you need to be motivated every day. People thinking you need to wake up and feel like you just watched one of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's motivational videos, and that's how you're supposed to feel every day when you wake up to go to the gym. It's one of those things that, and not every day is necessarily a good day or a great day.
Even for Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, I mean, I think that The Rock,
Exactly.
I think that he only puts on videos, and it's normal, and I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying he's a movie star. And what do movie stars do? They only show you their best face and their best side of it. They don't show you the times, and I'm sure there's got to be times that he's not the superstar, that he's not Black Adam, that he's not even The Rock. I mean, I just read a quote from Elvis Presley this morning that went something like this, that the face that people show, the image is not the person. The image is not the person. It's really hard for the person to live up to the image. And my most frequent response to it's time to go work, whatever, anything really, especially legs, is the holy crap response. Holy freaking crap, it's leg day. You will never find me jumping up and down.
When you have that response, that's the biggest thing as far as consistency and being strong is if you can show up when you have that holy crap, it's leg day, I don't want to go response, you will be all right. That's
now I'm not recommending this. I'll say this, but I will give a disclaimer. This is professionals only. Do not try this at home unless you're very well trained and you have someone like Austin supervising you. Gosh, Austin may think this is nuts too. But back in my day, we would do these 20 rep squats. I mean, we would go in the gym, load enough weight on the bar, and this is where the disclaimer comes in, that if we weren't close to passing out at rep 20, we didn't have enough weight on the bar. And we got really, really strong, but I saw stars and everything just went black. And my buddy, his thing was throwing up. I never threw up. My buddy Heath, he was into throwing up. We knew that we had enough weight on the bar when he freaking chunked his lunch in the gym trash can. One time the gym owner came down and said, "Hey, somebody said you threw up in the trash can." Hugh took the fifth. And I don't know what you're talking about. And so this is what's in my mind. Before a leg workout, I am thinking of how horrible it's going to be, how tough it's going to be. But to me, that doesn't matter because success is doing it no matter how hard it is. I do not let the difficulty get in the way of my agreeing to keep an appointment with myself. What are some excuses that you hear, Austin, from people about not showing up?
I would say that I don't have time excuse is the one that I hear more commonly than anything else. I think a lot of people are very different. We've got different lifestyles, and that leads people to definitely tell me some different things. But as far as across the board, I hear I don't have time all the time. And I usually ask those people to kind of look through their screen time. So on your iPhone in the settings, it tells you how many hours a day you spend in every app on that phone. I don't have time is what I hear most often. And if you're at home watching this and you think you don't have time, I would recommend that you check your screen time. And if we're scrolling through social media for hours a day, and it's like, okay, well, we have time. We don't want to spend that time on this. But to say we don't have it is a little much. right? So that's the biggest thing I feel.
Absolutely. And you know, that's funny because that's something that we'll
It's
hear.
all the time. I don't have time. I don't have time. I don't have time. It's like you don't want to end up in a situation where you're telling somebody you don't have time, and then we look through your screen time and find out we can spare 4.5 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
No, but
There's our sound. We have all these sound effects, and we like to match the sound effects with the topic.
Like
But in therapy, we get the same thing. We'll have
Yes.
people that'll come to therapy, and I'll say, okay, what's our agenda? And we'll need to go over your homework. That's all part of the agenda. And then you'll get this deer in the headlight look. We have a great meme where Debbie's giving the holy crap, I've been found out look. And they'll say I didn't have time, and I'll say kind of tongue in cheek, I know, it was a lot of homework. I mean, it takes, really to do this homework that I give, I mean, it does. It takes about 180 seconds a day. I mean, that's a lot of time, 180 seconds. Who's got, ain't nobody got time for that. 180 seconds a day. There's a meme about that. But I say that tongue in cheek because
that's what I'm saying. 180 seconds is a long time.
we all have exactly the same amount of
You
time.
get a lot done in 180 seconds.
But the problem is not the time. It is the finding meaning in something, prioritizing it, and number three, putting in an interval on our calendar, which I do. I mean, I have this strange alien device which has changed a lot of people's lives for the better and for the worse. I try to make it change my life for the better, but I actually schedule things so that I do them. By the way, I'll even schedule things for my family to make sure that I don't overlay it with work and working out and things like that. And I encourage people to do that. But yes, we I think excuses. One, I love the excuse I didn't get around to it. And you can actually buy this on probably Amazon or somewhere. I make them out of paper, but I will cut out a paper circle, and I'll write in the middle of it TUIT. And I say, oh, well, fantastic. See, I wish I'd known that. I would have given this to you last time. And they'll say, what the crap is that? Well, it is a round to it. You see, it's round, TUIT. Here's your round to it. You can have your homework done next time because I have bequeathed you, giving you a round to it.
Oh my God.
Problem solved. Isn't that cool? You can get them in wooden nickels. What are some things that you found actually help
and I
people?
can buy these on Amazon, you said?
That's all they needed. It's just a round to it. What are some things you found to overcome those hurdles of excuses, Austin?
So where I always start with, I look at things as a 3-pillar system. Okay, so first things first, I'm looking at schedule, then what I call fan food. So making sure I'm not putting you on a diet that you're gonna hate, and then making sure we mix in all of your activities that we can, kind of. So instead of letting multitasking come upon us, we're being proactive about it, right? The biggest thing with step number 1 is it's all scheduling. That's all it is. It's all scheduling. When we're willing to kind of say, okay, what time do you work? What time do you have kids getting out of the sports practices? What time do they need to be dropped off and picked up from school, right? And we start kind of laying all of these things out. All the excuses you were gonna tell me 10 minutes from now are no longer valid ahead of time. I guess now we don't have an argument. We can go ahead and get started, right? But scheduling things and really being very conscious of using our time actively instead of kind of just hoping that it all works out is one of the biggest things I would say for overcoming excuses. Because I think when you schedule everything out and you really, especially if you, like I use Google Calendar, it puts everything in different color blocks for me. I've got times and alarms and this and that. So like 30 minutes before this interview, I get a little notification on my phone that tells me, hey, you've got a meeting in 30 minutes. Cool, right? Once we start scheduling these things, it kind of can show people how much time they really have available as well. So also for the people who don't have time, it's like, well, let's pull out that calendar. Let's break it down. Let's plan ahead. And I just noticed a lot of the things that would come up excuse wise are usually kind of nipped in the bud ahead of time before, if we're really active about saying, hey, let's pull out your calendar.
I think that's fantastic. That's a I once had a professor tell me in grad school that the one thing that differentiated the students that succeeded versus the students that failed, and I mean actually were left the program or kicked out of the program, was that the students that succeeded had a high level of organization. And what is the old quote? If you don't plan to succeed, that's a plan to fail. And you have to have a target. You have to have a plan. Exactly. And people come to things just kind of, too much all up in the air, and they have no time set. They have no date set. They have no step 1, 2, 3, the pillars as you talked about them set. But tell us more about the pillars. As how someone could use that in their everyday life, maybe even outside of working out.
I would say outside of scheduling, one of my favorites, at least personally, is number 3, where we're kind of planning multitasking, activity integration. Right. Here's what I found with kind of starting off coaching kids and eventually moving into coaching parents. Oftentimes, the thing that the kids want to do are the things that you probably should be doing anyways. So when your kids say, Mom, Dad, come outside, let's go run around and play Star Wars or something like that. It's like, well, if you go run outside with your 7-year-old for the next hour, I won't make you get on the treadmill today, right? So those are those kind of little, I think, actionable things that that we can be doing, right? So a lot of it is like, and that's why when people tell me, oh, I don't have time. I have an 8-year-old. I have a 9-year-old. When am I supposed to make time to work out? It's like, no, you have a 9-year-old. You always have time to work out. Your time to work out is unlimited. Have you ever tried to run with a 9-year-old until that 9-year-old hits their energy cap? Your time to work out is unlimited. You could work out all day. You've got more time than anyone.
That's so fantastic.
That age,
that's
right?
awesome. Yeah.
Because I tell people that, say, the practice of mindfulness. You say you don't have time to sit in a chair and practice mindfulness for 3, 5, 15 minutes or whatever. Okay. Well, do you drink coffee? Because when I drink lots of coffee, I'm actually a trained barista. I went to Flint, Michigan, trained as a barista many years ago, and it's one of my favorite things in the world. But you can practice mindfulness while you're making your coffee. You can practice it while you're doing your dishes. We teach people about cognitive restructuring. You don't have to sit down and do a therapy sheet. I heard a person say, who is a big author, CBT, what we do, cognitive behavioral therapy, is all about worksheets. No. We want to wean you off of the worksheet so that you're applying this to ordinary everyday life. And you can use cognitive restructuring with your 8, 9-year-old.
Yeah.
You can use cognitive restructuring when you spill the milk.
Well, what better way to learn it than to teach it to someone else?
That's right. That's right.
So something that kind of goes along with physical exercise and therapy is forming patterns. So our brain loves patterns, and that goes along with, if you're scheduling these exercise sessions, and, you might still think and you might still be like, oh, I'm really not looking forward to this. But the more you push yourself to do it, even when you really don't want to do it, the more likely you are to just go ahead and do it anyways, because you get into that pattern. It becomes part of your day. It's something you're used to. And it's the same way with mental health, too. If you're used to practicing, let's say, like Dr. Heath said, mindfulness every day at a certain time, even if you think, well, I really don't want to do this, but eventually you'll just kind of go into it without even really thinking about it a whole lot, because it's part of your day now.
And that's even if it's something that you didn't want to do. I try to discipline myself to engage in really, really healthy nutrition. And since they say that confession's good for the soul, I have a confession to make. I follow really, really good nutrition pretty much year round, except for Halloween. And on Halloween, I will give myself permission for that day to eat all the candy I want to eat. But it's been a strange thing this Halloween, because I still found myself getting up and getting my 2 shredded wheat biscuits and my 2 handfuls of blueberries and my black pepper, black maca, turmeric infused latte. And I think, wait, stop. Why are you eating all this healthy crap? This is your day to eat junk food. But I still find myself habitually going for the healthy stuff. Everything, once you program it in the brain, can get put on autopilot if you do it often enough. And that's even healthy stuff. And that's why my wife would complain about all the working out in years gone by. I was in competitive bodybuilding back in the late 90s, and did the strongman contest and things like that, because it got to be such a pattern. Even though it was a healthy thing, it kind of took on a life of its own, because it's like ambulation, which is walking across the floor. At a certain point, you stop being that year and a half old that's kind of toddling around trying to find your feet on the floor, and it becomes left foot, right foot automatic. You never think about it again. And that's the way it is with patterns. You can form a healthy pattern and repeat it, or you can form an unhealthy pattern and your brain will want to repeat that too. It's all about choosing healthy patterns. So Austin, what are some of the healthy patterns that you try to encourage your customers, your clients to engage in?
I would say general movement, even on days where you're not planning like a really intense workout, right? So just being able to say, hey, well, I've got nothing planned today, so let me do 5 minutes of yoga and a 10-minute walk after I have dinner, or something kind of small like that. Just this idea that, because you're going to heal faster, I think, both physically and psychologically, the more you're moving. And that doesn't have to be this crazy, intense ordeal. I think a lot of times I'll have people say, if I'm working out, should I be working out for an hour or an hour and a half or 2 hours? Like, it doesn't have to necessarily be that, right? So just something small every day, right? So you keep moving. Now, that kind of just puts you in a position where you're used to moving every day. And when we talk about having those habits, it's like, okay, well, if I can get you to walk 5 minutes, 10 minutes every day after dinner, and I can get you to do that for 3 months straight, then for the next 3 months, it's kind of just going to be a spot in your brain that's telling you, oh, I just ate, let's get up and go for a walk, right? I don't need to then continue to tell you, go for a walk after dinner. But a lot of it is just, what kind of 5-minute habits can we install and go from there. I think that does change from person to person throughout their lifestyle, but adding in 5 minutes of walking after a meal, adding in 5-10 minutes of stretching before bed or when you wake up in the morning, are, as far as just general across the board things that I usually end up recommending. Or drinking water every day, right? Wake up to a glass of water. Just easy, small things that once we make habits, the benefits far outweigh the amount of work that we had to put in to get there.
And I love that, because we do teach some of the same things to people that come to us for therapy, because we find that people, even after 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years of living in a certain pattern, it's, hey, let's get this done all of a sudden. Makes about as much sense as somebody coming to you and saying, well, I've never worked out, Austin. I'm grossly out of shape, but I am going to compete in the Mr. Olympia next year. Yeah, that's right. Or next week. And I think the kind of dialing back and helping people form realistic expectations of what realistically can the human body do in our practice. Realistically, what can the human brain do? And know, as good as I think we are, we can't help reprogram the human brain overnight or in a week. I once talked to a provider panel, and the lady representing the provider panel, which we'll hear henceforth go unnamed, said, we're experimenting with single session cures, basically.
Oh my
Well,
gosh.
good luck with that. There's no single session workout that's going to cure lack of physical fitness, and there's certainly no single session psychological sessions that are going to cure some of the things that we deal with. So I think dialing back people's perceptions and helping them view more long-term goals, and it's kind of like eating an elephant. You know, you don't swallow the whole thing, you'll choke, but a bite at a time.
And I think oftentimes people will underestimate how valuable it is to take a bite at a time. So like one of those kind of stories, I think, of somebody coming in and saying something almost ridiculous, is I've had a guy come to me and say, hey, I haven't worked out in probably 6 or 7 years, but I need to get back in shape. And it's like, okay, cool. Well, what are you looking to get back in shape for? I'm taking the police academy test. I want to be an officer. And it's like, well, my dad was Navy. Well, we really appreciate the servicemen. Great work. You know, we appreciate you. When is this test? This guy looks at me and says, the test is in 2.5 weeks. And now I'm like,
No pressure.
Oh man.
No pressure. I've had cases where
what
people
am I
actually,
supposed to do with that?
Yeah, really.
I've had cases where people come in and they will say, the divorce papers are filed. Oh, well, that's unfortunate, but we're here going to give it one last shot. And I try to right off the bat set some expectations. I mean, your relationship has gotten where it is today over a progression of time, not overnight. Therefore, you know, we typically start out with this many sessions. Here's what you can expect. Well, we have divorce court tomorrow. Oh, holy moly.
Oh, wow.
You have divorce court tomorrow. Well, what can we do about that? Well, I'd call the attorneys and tell them to cancel. We're not ready for divorce court. You can do that? Well, I mean, the divorce police aren't going to come and arrest you because you've called off divorce court. But be that as it may, let's take this a bite at a time, a step at a time. Let's start out with each of you changing in small increments your thinking about yourselves, others, the world around you, each other, but it will be in small increments. People really get into catastrophizing the speed at which success must occur, and success is just a longer road than that.
Welcome to Social Media Smackdown. Tonight, the irresistible force meets the illogical object. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to reason!
This comes straight from a post that I recently addressed. 2 essentials for a stable and secure relationship. Number 1, commitment. I'm going to leave that one alone because I agree, of course. Number 2, expressions of pain, not anger. That's what I'm going to tackle. The post says, anger almost always pushes people away. Anger is usually driven by underlying pain, not so. Expressing that pain allows partners to better help each other and dissipate those difficult emotions. And I responded to that text, that meme, with wrong. Anger is an emotion, not a behavior. This post assumes that all anger can, number 1, be noticed, and it can't. Someone could be angry and you'll never know. Number 2, that all anger results in unhealthy behavior. Not true also. You can experience normal human emotion and still behave in a healthy way. And evidently this actually comes from a fellow psychologist, and I just simply disagree, and I think this is just terribly bad teaching on the front lines of psychotherapy to let people go away thinking that you can't have anger in a relationship. I think the quote here is, commitment and minimal expressions of anger are 2 characteristics of intimate relationships that support security and stability. How about this? What supports security and stability in relationships is getting in touch with your own thinking. And when someone else is angry with you and they let you know that they're angry, that you can think about that in a healthy, accurate, realistic way, not view that as a threat to you. Now, if they're throwing the toaster oven, it's time to run the other way. But just because someone is angry doesn't mean that that has to be a threat to any type of support, any type of security, any type of stability. And this is what I posted in my little social media debate. And I got a response, and I always appreciate responses. The response said it could be phrased better, but the idea I think is correct, that you should express the underlying frustration. That's not frustration we're talking about. Express the underlying thought or belief. Back to the quote. Describe the pain in a way that is calm instead of allowing the expression to be angry and potentially hurtful. This is assuming that anger is hurtful. There is nothing hurtful. There is nothing harmful. There is nothing unhealthy about having anger. And I replied in my final post that once you enter the word expression or behavior into the picture, you're no longer talking about emotion but behavior. I can be angry and have a healthy expression of behavior. Moreover, regarding the calm comment, why must we set some sort of speed limit or pass some type of relationship law about spending our entire lives only being calm? Why is not being calm sometimes okay? Aren't there things in life, such as a house fire? Honey, get out of the house. It's on fire. Why must we always be calm? Why is not being calm such a horrible thing? We can be other than calm and still respectful. I see such limiting beliefs as these in relationships on the therapy couch all the time. We teach patients about what is practical for a lifelong relationship, and expecting 50 to 80 years of zero anger and 100% calm is not only impractical, it is a recipe for disappointment and relationship failure. Adjust your expectations and you will save your relationship. Catch you next time.
What a slobber knocker! The winner by psychological smackdown, Doug Heath! No pronouns were harmed during the production of this podcast.
You're listening to TherapyBites Art Lab, bite-sized therapy for your brain with Dr. Heath and the TBAL Team. The best advice on the net. No copay required.
Welcome to the TherapyBites Art Lab Library, where we have poured over thousands of volumes to bring you the latest Couch Crumbs quote. Oh, would you like a napkin? You're getting crumbs in the book.
That okay. Me eat book.
Oh. And now today's Couch Crumbs quote.
Today's quote comes from Scott Barry Kaufman, and it says, "Every person on this earth is full of great possibilities that can be realized through imagination, effort, and perseverance."
Here's Heath and the TBAL
Right,
Team.
and kind of with the whole bite analogy too. I think when it comes to comparisons, that can be a bit difficult for people because one person's bite may be a different size than somebody else's bite. You know, because everybody has different limitations, different capacities, different ability to understand concepts. So while you may see one person that's just like taking off and they're doing amazing, and then another person sees them and they're like, well, why am I not, why aren't I doing like they are? Well, there could be a couple different variables. And first of all, are you practicing at home? Are you practicing it every day? Are you putting the same time and effort into it? And even if you are and you're not progressing the same exact way, humans are unique. Everybody's different. Everybody's body type is different, and the way that people think is different. So just kind of keeping those kind of things in perspective too.
I've had also a client come to me and say my friend went to therapy and they, conquered everything in like 6 months. So I'm expecting you to do the same. And then they come and it's a really big issue, that's been in practice for many, many years. And it's like, okay, well, we've got, it's explaining that to them that's different, but getting them to accept that the bites are different sizes and it may take longer, takes time too, because they're like, well, no, my friend did it and she's fine, so I expect to do the same because I don't want to spend, you know, all this time in therapy. You should just get it and get done and just tell me how to fix it. And it's like, we got to instill some new habits here, some new patterns, and really, really work on it.
Austin, what do you do when you find your clients competing with other people, maybe competing with movie stars or competing with a neighbor, friend, or family member?
I often try and get them to focus on small goals, or kind of like you said in the bite analogy, small bites, small steps forward. I look at it almost like building a wall, right? If I told you I need you to build a brick wall that's 100 feet tall, you're not going to pick up every brick for that wall at one time.
Right.
And take one piece, set it, another piece, set it, and start to get used to feeling accomplished from that one piece set, right? Because we've got to take this one block and place it perfectly where it needs to go. And when we do that, we want to feel accomplished. The whole wall's not built yet, but we want to start to feel accomplished with getting ourselves along the way, in a sense. So I'm looking at every little thing they're doing along the way. We've accomplished that goal. Getting that person to see, hey, this is still a 27-foot wall, right? This is still an accomplishment, right here. So it's not like you've already failed. We're just not there yet.
And one of the things from the psychology side of it, Austin, that we work with people to differentiate is the difference between what I choose to believe versus what I feel. And we actually teach people that feelings will never tell you if you've accomplished anything, because the brain encodes feelings differently. There's no amount of happy, sad, mad, glad, disgusted, ashamed, stressed, depressed, anxious, angry that indicates success or accomplishment. That's something very, very different. I teach people you have succeeded if you showed up at the gym. You have succeeded if you showed up for your mindfulness, showing up for therapy. Success, irregardless of any emotion that you might attach to it, because we find psychologically it's really a Pavlov's dog situation, where Pavlov, the researcher, would ring a bell and have food for the dogs, or really he would feed the dogs and ring a bell, feed the dogs, ring a bell. They began to associate a bell being rung with the success at getting food. Bell means food. Bell means success. And psychologically, people in our patient group, client group, customer group will think that success is when I experience pleasure or some other emotion. Failure is when I experience a difficult emotion, and we teach them to actually disconnect that you can do something successful and not have a preferred emotion. You can have any emotion and still be successful. I have patients that say, well, I had this conversation, that conversation, this other difficult conversation, and it wasn't very successful because they were upset. No, that their being upset doesn't mean that it wasn't successful. It just means that they were upset. The presence of discomfort does not equal lack of success. Quite the opposite, at least for me. When I am always uncomfortable when I'm doing my 3-mile run, because I do HIIT training, high intensity interval training. I will sprint for 90 seconds as hard as I can go, and then I'll jog for 60 seconds, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then my last one is more along the lines of maybe almost 2 minutes, maybe a minute 45 seconds. And that one, oh my word, it is just so hard. But the level of difficulty doesn't mean for me lack of success, just quite the reverse. I fast once a week for 60 hours, and that actually the discomfort, the hunger equals sign success to me. I've learned to interpret hunger as success. And I find in our culture, people typically associate success means I have some preferred emotion.
Whether it's personal fitness or psychology, success is often, I think, a little more conflated with the end goal as opposed to the daily processes that get us closer to the end goal. So I guess in terms of psychology, it's like I'm not successful unless I'm happy. It's like, well, did we learn something today? Like, did did we get somewhere? Did we spend some time in an uncomfortable place? Because that's success. That's progress. That's success, right? Or in fitness, somebody saying, "Well, I didn't bench 225." It's like, well, you started at 150, and now we're at an even 200. We're getting there, right? This is successful, but I think kind of the end goal is often too much the focus. It's like going to therapy isn't immediately going to make you smile from ear to ear 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's not necessarily the goal that we jump there immediately. You know what I mean? At least for me, the way I see it is trying to get people accustomed to the smaller successes along the way.
I love that. That
Kinda
is
like
that
you were saying,
incremental success,
that
that incremental moving forward. I mean, I know people that they weigh every day. I like your take on this. They will weigh every day, and if they haven't, I don't know, lost a pound a day or some nonsense like that, they think that whatever they're doing is not working, and they view it as a static process instead of a dynamic. Sometimes it's 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. Maybe the scale this week shows you've lost no weight, but is that lack of success?
Right. Typically, no. Especially when we've got people saying, "Well, I've been weighing myself every day since I started this," and the way I typically look at that and have that conversation is, I consider it successful if now you're at a point where every day you care. Okay, because a lot of those people who are feeling that right now, if we look 6, 7 months ago, we're at a point where they didn't care at all. Yeah, we may be stagnating right now, but we're still making progress because you are trying something from a point of not putting any sort of work or effort into this.
Oh, that's beautiful. I mean, I think it's beautiful how you're putting that, because what I'm hearing is just simply the fact that people are now focused on it. They've increased their awareness of it. It's now on their radar. Well, yeah, that in and of itself is success, because from a neuroscientific perspective, whatever our brain focuses on, it wants to focus more on. For instance, if you focus on anxiety, your brain will become more focused on anxiety. If you focus on depression, your brain will get really, really, really good at recognizing and witnessing and picking out any semblance of what could be called depression. You actually get better at being in a sink or swim situation with depression. On the other hand, if you train your brain to focus on your thinking, then your brain's going to do more of that too. And with your eating and with your exercising, I think what I'm hearing you point out is the more you focus on those things, the more of your radar that will consume. And that's important.
Yeah. It's like if we're getting to a point where now it's consuming more of your radar every day, kind of getting people to understand, hey, that is a start to a process that's gonna take time. Just because you started thinking about it doesn't mean we immediately have to snap into you being a professional bodybuilder, right? But at the same time, we shouldn't take it lightly that now it's on your radar. Now it's taking over more of your radar, because that does mean you're thinking about moving yourself forward. That means we're starting this process. I wish that was a more, I think, celebrated part of the process and a more recognized part of success.
We have about 5 minutes left in our program, guys, and so I would like for us to come up with just a few questions to cap off the episode with Austin, and I'll start it out if y'all can think of what you'd like to know before we let him go for the day. And we do appreciate so very much his time. This is such valuable information.
Yes,
I hope people
you.
replay the episode over and over again. And Austin, you can share it out to the folks that you work with and your followers, and on social media we'll give you some things, graphics, and that we think are pretty cool that you could get it out there. And if you want your very own Austin Wheeler Therapy Bites mug, you can go over to the Shopify store and get that. It'll be something we've created just for Austin in his own special TherapyBites outfit with the requisite dressy blue sport coat. I think it's a yellow tie and green TherapyBites pants, if I have that correct.
Okay.
And you'll notice the shoelaces are untied, and there's a whole story behind that. What's the story? Well, the story is we kind of like to hang loose. Yeah, so we don't tie our shoes. We just kind of like to hang loose. And you can get that on a T-shirt. We'll have a show shirt special about this episode. Of course, Austin, he gets a gift card for being on the show, and he gets his for free. He can get a mug and a T-shirt. And we encourage those of you that love Austin as we do to go and get your show shirt, coffee mug, just as a visual reminder to keep on thinking about these things. Just incremental thinking can make all the difference. My question is this, is how does motivation tie into, sticking perfectly with a plan to see results? Because, see, here's what I find in therapy is that people may start out very motivated, and then there's a bit of a therapy fade. It gets kind of hard, and then they think, well, if I'm not having a preferred emotion, such as I think of my therapy appointment and I'm happy or I'm excited, if I'm not having excitement, then maybe I should just not go. Maybe the lack of this preferred emotion or not doing therapy perfectly, I missed my homework, I forgot about it. Maybe this is a sign I should stop. Austin, I'm sure you see this with working out. People think if I can't do it perfectly, I should just give it up.
Yeah, and the way I usually like to explain, well, one, fitness, but two, a lot of things in life is it's not so much about whether you do everything perfect on every single day. It's more about it or I guess I want to explain it as fitness is kind of going to be an end result of little decisions you make on a large scale every day over a long period of time. So if you mess one thing up, typically when I have conversations like that, I'm going along the lines of, hey, if you mess one thing up, that's not really any reason to quit. You know what I mean? That's a reason to be even more motivated, to know that you messed up today and you can still get to where you want to go down the line. It doesn't have to be this all or nothing. But in general, fitness is going to be an amalgamation of little decisions from every day. So making one mistake, not being able to do things perfectly is not really something that I worry about a lot. And as far as my individual clients' motivations, if they miss a workout and they feel like, oh, well, maybe I can't do this, it's like, let's find a way to get something done still, so we provide that little win in a sense, but really getting them to understand that missing one day is not super detrimental. Having one day where you're not feeling good about your workout is not super detrimental. Having one meal where you decide that I'm going to go to Little Caesar's Pizza and eat everything I'm not supposed to is not going to kill all of the progress, right? A lot of it is just going to be about, cool, we had a day. Let's move on to the next one and get them to really understand that, hey, one bad day is not such an important factor in all of this. Kind of remove their importance on that day, remove the value from that bad day.
Austin, I love the way that working out and therapy have so many things in common. As we've talked today, it's just been fascinating. I don't know a lot about working out, but I was wondering about working out. Something that we see in therapy is people are so, like you said, focused on the end goal that a lot of times they don't notice the little successes and they don't notice the progress they're making. Others notice it before they do. Do you see that happen as well?
Yes, all the time. So I typically notice a person's confidence will start kind of coming to before anything else. I may notice a person's if I start working with somebody at the beginning of a month, I may notice confidence starts to change 2-3 weeks in. A month is where we start to see I think start to see those sort of physical changes, I guess. So that's the main thing I'm looking for, and how those two are related, and when does that start taking effect.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool.
That's great.
I had a question. You talked about scheduling your day. Is it important, like, to schedule in different things and have it marked off? Is it also important to schedule, with working out, a good sleep hygiene?
Yes. I guess the analogy that I like to give to explain this is when you're working out, you're kind of tearing your muscles apart, right? A lot of rebuilding your body is like rebuilding a kitchen or a bathroom remodel. The weight room is the fun part. You're gonna go in there, lift weights, da da da. That's kind of like going into that bathroom or that kitchen remodel with a sledgehammer, and you get to destroy everything and remove your old countertops and all of that. Your sleep and nutrition is gonna be that part of the remodel where you're bringing in all of the new drywall and the new countertops and all of that sort of deal, and getting it all put together. So typically, if we're going to work out and not sleep, it's kind of like doing a kitchen remodel where we destroy the kitchen, but we don't take the time to rebuild another one. Basically, you're going to end up with this result of constantly getting more and more injured, not getting stronger. And it's really understanding that sleep is going to be the time where we are building, right? That you're not necessarily getting stronger in the gym. You're stressing yourself in the gym. You're getting stronger when you sleep and adapt to that stress.
That's awesome. Thank
great.
you.
Adapting to stress, and it is a gradual step-by-step adaptation.
Right.
We'll always have stress. Stress is a weight against our existence, but we can grow strength to help us to adapt to lifting that weight.
I have one more question. So I know this is something that I come across a lot in therapy, and I'd imagine it happens in exercising too, but how do you help a client or customer when they are struggling with perfectionism? Like they have to get it perfect, or they want to redo it over again, or they have to look the certain way, or, instead of just focusing on putting in the work, they want it to be perfect.
Oftentimes I try and teach, as weird as this sounds, right, teach people how to laugh at themselves. So that can kind of start out with either us having a conversation where we're laughing at me, something I may kind of put myself up as a sort of a sacrificial lamb to be the first. We're going to make the first joke about me and then kind of go from there, right? But I think the ability to kind of, in a sense, take a step back and laugh at yourself. I think the first couple times you do that, you really start to see, okay, I made an error. I laughed at myself for the error. Nothing about this end result has changed dramatically. So kind of like I was saying earlier, fitness is going to be a lot more about an amalgamation of the little things you're doing daily, right? So when we make one of those errors, oftentimes I find that the results of making that error don't line up with the person's perception of the result. People think that the world's going to come crashing down because they made one error, and realistically, that's not what's going to happen to you because you made one mistake. So just getting patients or getting clients to be able to take a step back, like, yeah, I really did that, okay, and move forward. But I think kind of adding humor there is one of the things that I use to kind of take the mind off of the need to be perfect.
That's awesome.
That's good.
And I'd like to leave you today with something that I think Austin would agree with, because I think he kind of brought it up, and that is perfection may be zeroing in like a rifle shot on this one single area, but that's not real life, because in real life we can stumble forward a little bit this way, a little bit that way, but we're still stumbling forward in a healthy direction. It's not about perfection. It's not always about coloring within the lines. Sometimes life is messy, and the best we can do is 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, but always roughly, whether it's to the left or to the right, always in the healthy direction. We want to invite you guys to join us and join Austin at stumbling forward day by day in a healthy direction. Thank you, Austin, for being with us. That was such fun.
Thank you.
And we look forward to getting this episode out. Again, you can go to our Shopify, TherapyBites Shopify store and get your very own, guys, your Shopify show shirt about today's episode, just as a healthy reminder to keep stumbling forward in the right direction. We'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.
Hey, T-Ballers, thanks so much for being with us today. If we brought value to your day, show us some love by leaving your positive feedback and inviting some friends to listen in and join the T-Ball Team. Next time on TherapyBites Art Lab.
We are happy to have in the Art Lab today our very own superhero, Ahmad Vital, and we look forward to hearing him talk about the psychology of superhero. You know, the big screen is just full of superheroes that swing through New York, that fly through the skies, that come from foreign lands and foreign dimensions. But we're going to talk today with Ahmad, who is an expert in this area. How can each of us in our own lives be an actual superhero? And that's coming right up.
Government legal gobbledygook. TherapyBites is not intended as a diagnostic or as an alternative to professional clinical treatment. Resources and advice are for information and entertainment purposes only. Brought to you by someone saying things you don't like? Tape that nagging loudmouth shut. Government-approved speech tape. Gas tape. Now available at your local hardware store. TherapyBites Art Lab is not an approved, endorsed, authorized, butt-kissing affiliate of the United States Special Offense Assessment Police. SOAP for short. Warning. Consumption of TherapyBites Art Lab content by Kool-Aid drinking, stinking, thinking, social media, pseudo-psychological pushing, wacky woke, anti-free speech, mumbo-jumbo advocates may cause spontaneous internal skull combustion, stomach discomfort, and or laxative effects. Allergy warning. TherapyBites is manufactured in a facility that challenges nutty distortions, processes nuggets of accurate, realistic thinking, and life-affirming beliefs. This is the audio version of the legal fine print. Why are you still listening to this when you can catch the next great episode of TherapyBites Art Lab with a good friend or family member? Really? Are you still there? This is getting silly. Move on to the next psychologically thrilling episode of the best advice on the net. No copay required.
Me eat copay.
Yeah, with Dr. Heath and the TBAL Team. Go ahead, don't be podgoraphobic. Scoot, scoot, scoot. On to the next episode.